Hello there, welcome. This is Nerd.World Films, and continuing the exploration of the Tremors franchise. In this episode we go into Tremors 5 Bloodlines, the fifth installment, not including the short-lived TV series, that was made as a straight-to-DVD movie in this series. A lot of things to break down and unpick about this film. By this point, Tremors 5 is 25 years later since the original movie was made. The series has kind of explored every facet of the life cycle of the Graboids, so they can't just invent a new system, a new thing, a new mutation, nothing like that. They've explored the characters pretty thoroughly, and it's time to simply fall back on some of the same old tropes. They actually tried to get Kevin Bacon back for this movie, and he was originally somewhat interested in reprising his role, but he ultimately would pass, and instead we get Jamie Kennedy. The way this series decided to steer itself in a new direction after Tremors 4, which is an excellent film by the way, which was the prequel, was to take Bert, maybe not out of his comfort zone, but away from where he was, and show that the Graboids are more than just a problem for a little canyon area somewhere in backwater America. That actually these are a creature that's pretty damn widespread. Jamie Kennedy, of course, is most known for being a comedic actor, and, you know, if you can call The Mask 2 comedic. So we've got that in this film. Now, the Tremors franchise is no stranger to comedy, so to me his addition into this franchise is something of a welcome addition, but it's one of those things where they decide to shake it up by retconning in a character that should have probably always been there, or Bert would have always known about, because Bert was no idiot. And yeah, we'll get to that. But anyway, Tremors 5 Bloodlines is a reason it's called that. This movie takes place not in Nevada, United States, but in South Africa, and to its credit, it actually doesn't just fly in a load of actors from the United States. It actually uses people who are hired from the local acting pool in South Africa. And the film benefits somewhat from, again, a lot more practical, but with some digital just to enhance. As I said previously, in Tremors 3 they relied heavily on digital effects and not on practical. That was a mistake, and they went back to this. This movie, yeah, there's some CGI, but it's done a lot better. At least better than Tremors 3. Still not great, but remember, we are in B-movie territory here. But getting back to the basic story, they are hired by a shady dude who wants Bert to go and take out a load of Graboids in South Africa. They fly down there, but all their weapons kind of get stuck in customs, so they have to rely on local weaponry to try and take these creatures on. While doing this, they encounter local thugs and bullions, as well as a local group of survivalists, including people that just never speak. And yeah, the film's writing is where it suffers. It's like it's relying on the ever charismatic Michael Gross to simply portray another great performance, and the comedic chops of Jamie Kennedy to carry this, along with what are a good, generally secondary cast of people and stories. The Graboids in this instance are a larger breed of Graboid, native to Africa, and as the locals say, they do everything bigger in Africa. And the Graboids definitely reflect that. They are considerably larger than their North American counterparts. They also, in their life cycle, seem to miss out the Shriekers, going straight to the Ass Blaster form. This in some ways limits their numbers, however, as they can't breed in such large numbers. The Ass Blasters basically just lay eggs, and probably not very many. One is usually the standard, and that egg will eventually hatch into some form of little grub version of the Graboid and eventually grow into the Graboid. And yeah, although I will give them something, they made the Graboids look a lot more menacing in this movie. The Ass Blasters too also are made more convincingly terrifying and horrifying as a creature. They are less sort of awkward waddling duck and more ferocious killing machine. The film does do this quite well. The Graboids themselves as well are able to literally propel themselves out of the ground if needed. They also have a weird ability to detach part of their mouth parts. Each Graboid has 3 proboscis that come out of their mouth, which have themselves little grabbers on the end of them. Now these are not mouths as far as we know. They're designed to grab hold of prey and pull it towards the Graboid, because the Graboid can move very quick underground, but it can't move too quick above ground. If it needs to come above ground but misses its prey, it can still project these out. They grab the prey, they pull it into its mouth, and it disappears back underground. In this instance, the thing can actually release them like little snakes that will grab food and bring it back to the Graboid. How that works, not too sure. I'm assuming it's something like its own like mini brain, instinct driven, and it's a bit like when a lizard detaches its tail, although I assume these things can reattach, which is pretty weird, but whatever. And yeah, the one of the ways this film sucks, and it does suck in some ways, was, as I said, as much as Jamie Kennedy to me was a welcome addition, the whole backstory is here. Spoilers if you haven't seen this film and don't want to know. Jamie Kennedy, it turns out, is Burt Gummer's son. I'm sure you didn't see that coming. And Burt knew nothing about him. Basically, Burt had a fling with a girl years ago, and she got pregnant, never decided to tell him about it. When he grew up, he found out who his dad was, and he went seeking him out. The shady character, by the way, who takes him to South Africa is Jamie Kennedy, because he's a pretty shady character overall. In later movies, we find out he gets arrested on borders. He's always doing something dodgy. He's a bit of a dodgy, unsavory character, but he is funny, mostly. His biggest flaw is this, how they wrote him in. They basically retconned so much of the story into this to make him a part of it. It's like, Burt is not this stupid. Why wouldn't he know about him? He's a paranoid. Like he wouldn't have worn a condom. He's paranoid. Anyway, getting past that, this film does do well in the areas it does well in. It does well with the Graboids, it does well with the ass blasters. Personally, I think I would have liked to have still seen Shriekers, but I suppose it makes sense in tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of evolution and diversification of this species. Of course, there would be some differences geologically. Of course, South Africa and America have not been connected together in an extremely long time. The Graboids, of course, have had more than enough time to mutate and change. Maybe it's not as advantageous for the Graboids in Africa to reproduce in such large numbers as their North American counterparts seem to want to do. Because as much as the North American ones seem to reproduce in huge numbers, there aren't very many of them around. And it's the same with the South African variety. They're still relatively rare. But the film also suffers in areas where it's trying to be clever, it's trying to be funny when it needs to be sharper. I mean, we've got a whole scene where Burt ends up in a cage surrounded by lions, drinking urine, getting pissed on. It's hilarious, but why is this in this film? It's like the film doesn't really know where it wants to go. Does it want to be horrifying in the form of making the Graboids much more terrifying, or does it actually want to be an all out and out comedy? It's hard to say, and it feels a little disjointed as a result. Not going to spoil the ending, aside from the fact that of course they win. The film's enjoyable. I'm not going to say it's not. It does have its flaws. Does it stand up to the earlier movies? No. You'll find this a lot more and more as the film series goes on. Not because I think it's getting to be a tired series. I do think they have clever ways of reinventing it, and plus this idea of the Graboids that live on another continent are going to be different, because of course they would be. A zebra and a horse are basically the same animal. There are differences, of course. Horses have been bred for riding, zebras have been bred for nothing because they're a wild animal, but basically they are basically the same creature. They share a common ancestor, but they've evolved on 2 different continents, and as a result are 2 different creatures. It will be the same with the Graboids. They are a natural animal, and it does actually take the series in a logical progression of the story in a way that kind of makes sense. It's just some of the sub-stories don't. So that brings me to the end of my discussion on this still very enjoyable movie, and let me know in the comments below, by the way, what you think of it and the rest of the Tremors franchise. And if you've not seen this film, go watch it. But that brings me to my scoring, and I'm going to rank this movie amongst the Tremors films as a 4 out of 6, mostly because, as much as again I do like Jamie Kennedy's appearance in the series, his backstory shoehorned in the way that it was kind of does the film a disservice. Also, the film's slightly enhanced emphasis on comedy, I may be being a little unfair here, but it's a little much. I get it, Jay McKennedy's a comedic actor, they want to give him material to work with. It's playing to his strengths. But does it play to the strengths of a Tremors movie? I don't know. Tremors films have always been horror comedy B-movies, and they're all funny, they're all fun. This film just leans a little heavier into it in a lot of places. But that being said, 4 out of 6 from my scoring system is a pretty damn good score, and it's a good and enjoyable movie overall, as is the whole franchise. So after this, I've got 2 more of these to do, Nerd Talks on the Tremors. You'll find, probably linked here somewhere, I've probably done it at some point in the video anyway, a link to the rest of the playlist of the Tremors movies that I've done, as well as hopefully a link somewhere to the series that I know by now is up on my other channel, because I've already made it and uploaded it before I've recorded this, so I know it's definitely up now, even though it wasn't from one of my previous videos and I said it would be. Ooh, ADHD strikes. Anyway, where was I? I was finishing this video. 4 out of 6. Go watch it. Whatever else I said, comment, like, thanks. There we go.
I just want to take this moment to thank you for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, please check out my social links in the description box below to Instagram and Twitter and others, and also is down there a link to my Patreon page where you can support this channel and the others as I try to grow this franchise and do this more regularly. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching, and bye bye.